Hey guys, it's Graham. What's cracking? This is my review of Blade Runner, the novel, not the movie. Y'all are going to rip me for this. I don't care. I have never seen the movie. I am given to understand that there are several special cuts, director's cuts, preferred director's cuts, super extended preferred director's cuts, what to the point that there's like 4 or 5 official endings to the movie. And that's been one of those things that's put me off of it because it's like, well, what if I watch this and I see the wrong ending? Like, which one is the correct ending? Because I'm also going to want to see Blade Runner 2049 with the gauze in it. And does one of those endings contradict the setup for the sequel or what? I don't know. Tell me. The book was originally called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Written by Philip K. Dick, published in 1968. And I guess there have been some changes to the book too. Originally, it was projected to be 25 years in the future in the distant year of 1992. And it has since been changed to where it takes place in the distant future of 2021. So, there's a couple of changes here. For example, the Soviet Union still exists, and we are also terraforming and colonizing Mars. Gosh, I can forgive the past for having such an optimistic view of what our day would look like. But hey, that's why Elon Musk bought Twitter and also the government, so he can build cities on Mars. But I digress. What is the premise of this novel? How does it differ from the movie? Well, I can't answer that second question, but I can tell you the first one. It does take place in San Francisco, and the main character is Richard Decker. He's got a wife named, in the audiobook, Scott Brick pronounced the name almost like Aaron, but in print it's Iran. So weird. Anyway, I'm just going to go with Aaron. And he's a detective for the police force. It never explicitly calls him a Blade Runner, so I'm guessing that that's a title that came along from the movie. But it's his job to retire illegal robots. By retire, that means kill and destroy them. He is a bounty hunter. He gets money every time he does that. And what's his motivation for getting money? Well, we're living in a world of radioactive fallout. There was some war that happened, and there's radioactive dust in Earth's atmosphere. On Mars, they have robots, and they're legal there, but it is illegal for robots to roam free on Earth. However, since most wild life forms have died out, if you own an actual animal, a pet of any kind, it's a bit of a status symbol. But if you own a rare and more valuable animal, especially something like, say, an animal that provides milk or a horse, because those are exceedingly rare, it's an even greater status symbol. There's also a loosely defined system of morality, kind of a state-endorsed religion called Mercerism, named after a guy named Wilbur Mercer. It is effectively communism with a face. There are some differences, but for our purposes, we'll call it that. And one of the core tenets of this Mercerism is forced empathy, or technologically distributed empathy. There's also a technology that can kind of force your brain to feel certain things. You can set it to, like, you can dial up, like, oh, I'll dial up this number and it will specifically make me feel this thing. And there's about 1,000 different settings. You can make yourself want to get up and go to work. You can make yourself want to get along with your spouse. And so everything in this world is really lifeless and synthetic. That's the key takeaway from it. The theme that they explore then is, like, what is the value of real life, and how do you determine what life really is? And at one point, Deckard he's thrown into this situation where even if he doesn't doubt it so much, the reader is led to doubt it. Is his life real? He begins to question, and people around him begin to question, if he is an android and if his life is authentic or not, if his memories are fake and what have you. Since this book has come out, this is an idea that's been explored a couple of different ways in different robotic books. But I liked the idea of going back to kind of the very first one, or the first big one, and seeing the ways that Philip K. Dick explored this idea. Sci-fi of this era was less about walking you through a specific plot and what am I trying to say here? And then, like, giving you a couple of pieces of exposition along the way to examine a specific type of technology. It was more about asking a question and then kind of poking you and prodding you and scaring you with the question to make you wonder what you would do in this situation. It's a little bit more aspirational in terms of literature and a little bit less explicit in the conclusions that it draws. The conclusions that you draw are largely going to depend on your own worldview and what your own imagination can extrapolate from it. If I lived in this world, how would I handle this scenario? I kept thinking of this clip from Family Guy where it might have been Stewie or Brian. One of them is at home watching TV, and it's like, all right, and now back to our movie, an average 70s sci-fi featuring a protagonist in a turtleneck. And it's this guy running through some desert terrain, and he comes across a building, and he looks inside, and everybody looks exactly like him, and they're wearing these kind of like sterile space uniforms with turtlenecks, and it's got a depressing ending, and he ends up griefing himself with a pistol and finding out that his girlfriend is a robot, and it's like, it's a whole bunch of tropes all smashed into one. And the joke is that during the 70s, all sci-fi was basically this. That same feeling hangs over this book. I keep wanting to call it Blade Runner, but I also acknowledge that it's not necessarily Blade Runner. It's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? It's a weird book to have a thesis about, to come to a straight conclusion about. It is one of those that it's so classic, and it's been examined from so many different angles and mimicked and spun off from, that me putting a rating out of 5 stars on it feels weird. So, like, in a sense, it's almost like, well, what does my opinion of a classic matter? When I give 3 stars to the Bible, it's the definitive tome of Christianity. Does my opinion of it really matter? In this case, this is one of the definitive tomes of robot sci-fi. So, does my assessment of it matter? For me personally, I would probably give it between 3 and 4 stars in terms of the entertainment value that I got from it. But it is one of those books that I'm glad I read. It's like, okay, I understand what Philip K. Dick was tackling when he went at this idea. I'm sure that I've also read books by Philip K. Dick before, but I can't remember which ones. I'd have to go check my Goodreads list. I've definitely seen other movies based on his works. I don't think Minority Report was called Minority Report, but the movie with Tom Cruise was based on a Philip K. Dick book. And then the Nicolas Cage movie Next from 2007, which is it's a bit of a sleeper. I think it's underrated. I think the story that was based on was called The Golden Man, and it might have been a short story. But that one was really cool. Nicolas Cage, Julianne Moore, Jessica Biel. There's maybe 1 or 2 other recognizable names in it. Columbo was in it. I always forget that actor's name. He was the grandpa in Princess Bride. He's got a little bit part in there. Really good movie. It's about a guy who can see 2 minutes into his own future at any given time, and the government wants him because they want to be able to predict terror attacks. And at least in the movie, like, the only time that he can see farther into his own future is when it has to do with this woman, and he's trying to find her so that he can figure out like what it is about her specifically that keeps triggering these visions. Anyway, he's a big conceptual thinker. He'll take kind of like run-of-the-mill average Joe type characters for the trades that they have and put them into unique conceptual stories and then just run with it. And I think I'd like to read more of his work. But now that I've read this book in particular, I'll get around to seeing the movies eventually. But yeah, that's my take on Blade Runner. It was grungy, it was gritty, it was depressing, but the main thing that it was getting at is like what is the value of life? How do you know that you yourself are alive? It's almost like the Matrix and how it challenges your perception of reality and whether you can really prove that it is what you think it is. Big thoughts to tackle. If you've read it, let me know what you think. So next time, drive safe. See you out there.